Hey everybody, welcome back to Divergent States. I'm Elite, your host, back again with Brian.
Hey, what's up?
It's always good to have you back. Been a crazy couple weeks as always. Tonight we're here with DylAlien, the guy that did our intro music and hooked us up with that, and we're excited to have him here. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me.
We're excited to have you, man. It's
Yeah.
great to have you here. So we're talking a little bit, and you were telling us about about Goa Gil, and so who was Goa Gil?
So, Goa Gil was really an amazing DJ who, in a lot of ways, was the electronic music's version of the Grateful Dead. He played 24 hours sets out in nature for people to have like a ritualistic music experience. And I first heard him the weekend I graduated from college, and it coincided with the first time that I really took more than one tab of acid. Before I moved to California, everybody in my hometown was like, "Hey, listen, you can trip once a month. If you do it more than that, it'll be too much." And then I got to California, and they were like, "Wow, you could trip every day if you want."
Yeah.
And at the time, that's all I needed to hear. I mean, I'm
Right.
quite a bit older now, but as a 21-year-old, that was really exciting. And then, so I caught Gil playing at Burning Man, which I'd never heard about either. Some friends were like, "Hey, do you want to go to Burning Man?" This was 1997. And I was like, "Hey, what's that? Is there music there?" And they were like, "No, not really. You got to bring your own food. It's camp out." And I was like, "Oh, at this point, I was starting to get into electronic music, but I hadn't really danced much." So, Gil played After the Man Burned, right next to the man. And I caught the whole set and was just, first time I really ever danced and ever experienced the trance dance experience, I guess, which is, been happening forever for all kinds of music, especially in like ritualistic African or Indian music. It goes back a very long time. So I ended up wanting to find out everything I could about that. So the next year, Goa Gil toured around the whole world. He was based in California, but I hadn't met him yet. And so I went to Europe for the summer and decided to go to every show that he had, and which was 5, I think. And well, it's an appropriate time for this story. The first time he called me into the DJ booth, he was like, "Hey, come into the DJ booth. I hear you're from San Francisco." "I'm from San Francisco." I was like, "Great." And he's like, "I'd like you to meet somebody." And Albert Hoffman was in the DJ booth.
Oh,
Which is important because today's Albert Hoffman's birthday, and he would have been
That's
124. So he was like 95 or 6 years old still at that point. And, I was tripping, he was tripping a little bit, and I was able to just be like, "Hey, thanks from everybody in California. Like, the whole state thanks you for your existence." And
the whole world at this point. He's that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was really incredible. And then, starting in the year 2000, I started to help with some friends organize the Goa Gil parties here in California, where we had 2 a year, and I organized those for 2 decades until the pandemic. And Gil continued to play 24-hour sets until he was 71 years old. And then he got cancer and passed when he was 72, living an incredibly full life. And so the music that I got to experience, really impacted me like a whole lot, because his sets are really like a journey. It was really interesting. Some deadheads would come, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with that scene either, and they were like, "Wow, this is crazy," because some people have chairs here and they'll sit down for a bit. And then in the Dead shows, you don't sit down because like they're only going to play 5 hours, 4 hours, and that's it. And then this guy's like literally playing like up to 32 hours sometime. Just like
he
would
crazy.
Yeah, he was a
Right.
he spent his 70s and 80s, the decade 70s and 80s in India, uh, being a Baba. So he had an apprenticeship, I guess, with like Hindu people that are followers of Shiva.
Mm.
And in a lot of ways, like the archetype of Shiva is like a great archetype when thinking about tripping or even life in general, because it's like a high vantage point to see certain things, you know? So I ended up writing all the music, not me, I ended up writing music that he would play in the daytime on Sunday, which would often be like, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but like, say you trip and you trip all night and the next day you're still up. That part of the trip is you tend to be kind of in a good mood, you're joking around a lot. Maybe the term the cosmic giggle has found you.
Mm.
So I really ended up embracing that part of the music, which is like, hey, what's the music for the cosmic giggle, I guess. And I think Robert Anton Wilson was the first person to really coin that term that I know of, you know. But I think it's, I mean, actually, I think I have that listed as one of my favorite posts that you guys had on Psychonauts last year. Was somebody talking about that?
The cosmic
Uh,
giggle.
yeah, I think it's like you get high enough and you're like, oh, the jokes that's embedded in the universe, you know. And
Well, and
you
plus
know, I
that
think,
sounds like a really good song name. Like that'd be a
Right.
yeah,
great track. This is called Cosmic
Cosmic
Giggle.
Giggle,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, yeah. So for sure. So like, you know, a lot of the music has neurolinguistical programming. The same thing that you would use in advertising. So advertising, it's like there's this build up and then bam, there's a message, you know. And then because
Yeah.
I'm so aware that, well, one, propaganda works, and two, I don't know anything. So I try to leave the messaging really archetypal. For instance, like either I'll go with like something that's like a build in the music and then it just says nature. Or I like to go the Merry Pranksters route, which is like, let's just like inundate with like meta silliness that's just like makes you laugh. And I think in a lot of ways that was inspired by the feeling I've experienced many times, especially on mushrooms, where you start laughing uncontrollably and then you can just feel parts of your body relaxing, that you're like, maybe this part of my body has never been relaxed like my whole life. Like, I'm not even
That's
sure.
crazy.
Like,
Yeah, that's crazy. Which is
I,
probably
I
true too. Like
what I usually consider, I like to call that, it's almost like a cathartic laugh. When you get with those mushroom giggles,
yeah,
that just, you can't, it's like a cathartic laugh, which is kind of a, I guess, a weird kind of term. But yeah, I kind of, and it, I have a weird, I have a weird time with psilocybin a lot. I feel like I get more of a body load from it. I tend towards more just LSD is probably my favorite, but
hmm.
you know, DMT too. I think there's something, one I really like to do is mescaline, but you know, I guess getting back to the trance, that's the, sorry, kind of a little,
oh,
yeah,
and then everything you just said would probably be like a good sample in the middle of a trance song,
right. Oh,
because a
getting
lot of
back to
it's
what I
like,
was said.
you know, like, and then back what I was saying, and then the song kicks back in, you know, and then it's
Right.
like, yeah, yeah.
You
I
put some
mean,
filters on it, sample it
yeah,
later.
exactly,
There you
exactly,
go.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, for sure.
My favorite would probably be this.
Yeah,
Anyway,
dude, that's where you build it right there. My favorite would be like, and
yeah,
Yeah,
LSD.
then you get to the
That's
yeah.
top, mescaline,
Oh
go to
yeah.
there you
town.
go. Yeah, that'd be a
I
lot
think
of fun.
actually there's a big hit that's just called Mescaline that does exactly what you just said,
Oh shit.
by this band
Well,
called 1200 Mics.
Oh, nice.
And 1200 Mics, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I don't,
well,
I,
sorry,
I can't
1200
remember the
mics.
last time I was able to handle 1,200 mics. So.
Yeah, I miss childhood too. Well,
Right.
I'm not childhood, but like I consider my 20s my childhood in a lot of ways. And then uh, I had, and then I mean, I'm probably slightly on the spectrum. So like, you know, psychedelics did wonders for me. And then now I feel
Oh
like I
yeah.
trip like a normal person, and that like when I trip, I get like super high. I mean, for a decade, I probably was always tripping every time I performed music. Maybe I was addicted to it a little bit because it almost feels like I don't know if you guys feel like this, but like it almost feels like you're getting wizard vision, you know, and then I can even access the Akashic record if I need to, as long as it's not for anything maybe nefarious. And then you start to be like, wow, I'm like really firing on all cylinders right now. Uh, so now, I mean, boy, when I trip, I'm kind of overwhelmed sometime, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I used to be on stage in front of people doing this. Now I
say
just want to
that,
be with my dog, you know. But
right. I say last time, well, the last time I did it that high, I think it was a couple of years ago at the Dead. I went to a Dead show and at the Bill Graham down there in downtown San
yeah,
Francisco. Um, and somebody had Love Jug, which is, you know, quite a few. He put, well, God knows how many hits of acid in there and some MDMA and stuff. And I drank, you know, a good quarter of the bottle before I remembered, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't drink all this. And yeah, it was an interesting night. Like, I feel like uh,
It's a very modest way to put your experience.
yeah, yeah. Well, we ended with it some, you know, just we had a tank of nitrous oxide, kind of finishing everything off, and it puts it. Nitrous really puts you in those recursive thought loops. So
sure,
yeah,
sure,
so it was just well, it just coming back on them. So yeah, that's what I say. It was an interesting night, but yeah, it I mean, trance. That speaking, you're talking about the Grateful Dead earlier. I mean, that's a huge part of their shows. They would do the drum space right in the middle.
sure, totally,
Yeah, yeah. Jimmy, Mickey has the
yeah,
beam. You know, one of my best memories of San Francisco was at the Bill Graham, seeing Mickey kick the beam that night. One of the nights he was there, he was like playing it's this huge. I think I don't know, it's probably 10, 15 feet long, this huge, just like stringed instrument that'll do these just, you know, otherworldly tones. And he'll play it like a slide guitar or sometimes or like a percussion instrument. But yeah, he'll, seeing Mickey kick that beam was just, that was, you know, that's, you know, kind of the same with how you're talking about, you know, being able to work close with, yeah, Goa Gil, you know, it's kind of that same place, that trance that, you know, puts you in
sure,
another kind of headspace. And then, yeah, that's, I mean, like you're saying, I guess almost I guess the cosmic giggle or the harmonics of the universe.
yeah, exactly, yeah, it's for sure.
Well, guys, I think we're going to take a listen to one of DylAlien's tracks, speaking of all that. And we're going to come back, talk to him a little more, maybe get a little bit of the our top Reddit post for 2024. And we'll give it a call then. So here you go. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Tropical portion of Mexico, a large green leaf rock will land in a name, agalateness dactycolor, often to its mating call, tree or shrub. Extremely abundant frog along river bottoms or lakes, southern Sonora and Mexico, southward of Central America, is called Leptodactylus melanotus, or simply a ranita by Mexicans. At close range, its voice sounds like this.
Well, there's a global, there's a global movement. It's very small in the United States for many reasons. But for instance, I'll go to Brazil and play for 10,000, 15,000 people. And everybody there is tattooed up with, it kind of looks like a Mad Max show with Brazilians. And it's really big in Europe. There's a lot of people who, and then, I mean, honestly, like there's this idea that you can trance out and do this. And then once you start organizing something and you start selling tickets, it draws other dynamics. And then, so there's people there, of course, and then the internet amplifies this greatly. So, I mean, I came from a scene where it used to be no phones ever, no pictures ever. And then now, of course, there's internet moments happening all the time. So, there's less personal expression than there used to be, but I feel like that might be just indicative of the times, in a lot of ways. I feel lucky that I continue to get to go places and dance a bunch and have this experience because, the rest of the time I'm a school teacher and which is great. Sometimes I'll have kids that are super stoned in class. And, I'll just go up to them and I'll be like, hey, did you just say that out loud? And they're like, and they don't know. I mean, I don't.
Yes.
So that's pretty.
Oh my God. I love that you do that. I love that you do that. I was just about to ask you, do you fuck with them?
Oh, totally.
Because that's exactly what I would do. And that's brilliant. That's fucking brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of it's a lot of fun.
It.
Yeah, right.
You come to class stoned, you're gonna get fucked with a little bit.
Yeah, it's what? I could go tell the principal.
Right.
We could tell your parents. You want your parents to know? Didn't think so. So fucking deal with it, bro. Be smart about where you get high.
Yeah, for sure. Totally.
So I mean, that kind of brings me to another question. I guess talking about it, how would you see the scene and how it's kind of changed up from the long form? Like you said, Goa did 36-hour, marathon, and everything seems to move to this, the short form, like TikTok, 30 minutes. I mean, 30 seconds. I mean, 1 minute. Have you seen music evolve? How have you seen music evolve like that while you've been doing it?
Well, it's interesting because with that, also the tools to make music have become much more accessible, right? So when I started making music, it was very expensive. And, maybe every year we'd buy one piece of equipment that could do one thing. Now, the tools are a lot more powerful. So, and the access to information is a lot more, every day I'll go onto YouTube and I'll look up, how do I use this synthesizer to do this? And there'll be some examples and stuff. So on that side, I think there has been a continuation of the art in a positive way for sure. And then sometimes I feel it sounds weird. When I was little, there used to be this phrase, don't trust anybody over, 25, 30. Don't trust anybody over this age. Now I feel like it's don't trust anybody under that age. And it's because maybe they've never had the chance to have the long thought that happens when you turn off your mind for a long period of time. Put the phone, I'm old. The first time I tripped, I didn't have a cell phone, nor did I even think about going on the internet. Right. I just went to a rave, which seemed pretty futuristic at the time, but and it was, but still it's not as futuristic as we are now. And I feel my students, I'll ask them at the end of every year, hey, what's the biggest challenge you face? And all of them say using the internet and social media, even though it's totally indicative of living, they find it to be the biggest challenge they face, and how to. So I think it's really affected things a lot. And then so sometimes when I'll play music, people are like, wow, I've never experienced anything like that. Because it's a little bit like I'm not very flashy when I perform. It's really about like, let's have an experience that we can all share and find the cosmic giggle or whatever, you know.
Right. No, that's I see. Yeah, I agree with that. Sorry, got a little stumbled, but yeah, no, I agree. Um, well, is anything else? I was gonna say, is anything else you want to talk about on it? Or do you
Gosh,
guys
like,
do we want to get to our top Reddit post?
Well, I can talk about music until
Oh yeah,
the
Brian,
end of time.
you haven't really chimed in on it, and it's kind of your thing a little bit.
Well, no, this is something I've been thinking about. Like, I like to play music all the time, I guess. Like, but I've never really like tripped or anything, or gone to like a big festival where everybody was tripping. I've played a few shows here and there as far as like DJing goes.
There are
But
probably more people tripping there than you realized. So
that's probably true. Like, honestly, but I don't know. Like, I've always like music has always been something that kind of makes me naturally, I guess, trip all on
sure.
its own. Like, you know, just the visuals that I get in my head and things like that. So
it's a whole different. Once you get into music and psychedelics, kind of combining those two, it brings you in whole new places that you just never would have really gone before.
when I'm fascinated by the idea of these like long sets, like especially if there's like some structure to it, which I imagine at some point in the middle there, you probably have to be like, dude, it's just like, we're going to go kind of like this direction here. Like, but for some of it, I feel like there's some room to like have something kind of structured and like just create this whole like really badass experience, like kind of knowing what you want. I love that idea. That sounds really, really cool.
I mean, I think in a nutshell, this is an oversimplification, but those sets would be the beginning of the night on Saturday night is easy music. That's kind of easy to dance to. You know, it's casting a wide net. And then as the night progresses, the music actually in these rituals will get kind of darker and more intense.
Yeah.
And around sunrise, the music switches vibes to where it's like a little bit more euphoric in a way.
Yeah, majestic, like the sunrise is coming up. And
yeah. And then afternoon is what we described as like kind of the cosmic giggly stuff. And then Sunday night, when the sun's going down, is like the craziest music you've ever heard, like totally bananas. And then the only way you really like it is if you've gone through this journey where you're like listening to music, so dancing, and you're tired and you're with your friends. One of the other things I think about music and tripping too is it creates like synchronicities stacked. Like, I don't know if you've ever experienced like listening to music with friends that are high, and then you're all on the same page because you're listening to the same thing. And then sometimes it'll be like so many synchronicities happening right on top of each other. You're just like, whoa, what's going on? You know, which happens more when I'm listening to music with people than if I'm my second favorite. Well, actually my favorite thing to do is trip in the woods with three people, you know, but if I you know, need to do a big
oddly
group.
specific. Yeah.
Kind of what you're describing there kind of reminds me of just like being in a band and jamming, like,
oh yeah,
you know,
totally.
when like you got the guitar player and he starts playing a riff, and then you like, I play drums, so for me I'm like, okay, cool, and I come in with the beat, and then the bass player starts going, and then like even if you got a singer and they can just ad lib on the spot, man, like the things that you can make up in the moment on the spot when everybody's just vibing together on that one thing. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and it's a well-known phenomenon, like that musicians, their brain waves sync. The alpha waves, I think, they start to sync as they're playing that music, and they're just like just literally on the same, you know, on the same wave, and they're like they say they can almost read each other's mind. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you can. You totally you can't. It's like, or it's either reading each other's minds, or sometimes it feels like I'm getting the same. Like there's this source of all music way above me, and then we're just both, all the musicians are just totally connected to it. So it's like, it's almost like you're playing the song that's in the room, and you're just, you know.
Yeah, it's like the music's telling you what to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like you're not creating it. It's almost like it's using you to let everybody else know that it exists, and this is what it
You're
sounds like.
channeling the music
Yeah,
almost.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's
And
awesome
I think
too.
when you do that, you'll end up playing maybe sometimes better than you think you do based on your practice, or going in totally different, I mean, a lot of times.
When you're locked in, man, you can do things that
Yeah. I think being locked in musically like that is one of the top joys of being a human.
absolutely.
Because
If you don't play music, you need to start, because this is the truth.
That's
It's just like, wow, every problem goes away. Like,
Yeah.
And it takes a long time for them to come back. As soon as you start playing, it's not like they instantly come back. I mean, this kind of gives you a buffer for a while, like
Right.
in a lot of ways, like a good trip, totally, or even a bad trip, like a psychedelic experience. Often will give you a huge buffer from the traumas that you've been experiencing, or just the fast pace of life. For sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it really and I mean it does. I think it kind of taps into that kind of that it relieves that anxiety of just day-to-day life, kind of just pulls it out and tugs it out of you a little bit. And I think that's one of the the beautiful parts about music, and just how we all connect through that. Yeah, I mean, I've been playing guitar off and on for 20 years, but yeah, it's a lot of times it's not even playing anything specific. It's just noodling around and having fun.
Yeah.
And that's when really some of the best stuff that I do, when I'm not thinking about it.
I mean, one of the highest experiences I've had musically was just listening to somebody hit these wind chimes, and I was like, whoa, whoa. I mean, I was prepared for the experience by being very high, but
It's like, how high are you on a scale of 1 to I'm going to a wind chime concert? How high are you?
Yeah,
I'm on my way to a wind chime concert. Okay, please tell me you're not driving.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, totally.
I was gonna say like even one of my most it was like even a non-psychedelic experience was, it was just a drum. Somebody came in with a drum and just beat it real low and slow and did meditation with it. And I guess the next thing I know, I was a crow flying over the painted desert under a full moon, right over the clouds. I mean, it was so detailed, but it was, just, kind of like, as we're talking about, kind of finding that channel and finding that groove of the music. And that's where it led me that time.
Drums are it, like, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I love the djembe. That's my, if I'm playing drums, that's what I like to hit.
I play the kit, and I'm terrible with hand drums. Like, I can play a rhythm, but I have no hand drum talent. Like, the guys that can roll the fingers and get all the different tones and everything. None of that skill set.
Yeah, me neither. Occasionally, but I have to be wind chime high.
That's when you can really tap into.
That's when I can really get the djembe.
But then going. Somehow I'm like, oh, there we are.
Right.
I can hug the drum to get that other tone and everything. But yeah, most of the time not. Yeah.
When you're wind chime high, you can hit it just right, though.
Yeah.
You gotta. There it is. We're gonna make a T-shirt out of that.
Sweet. Yeah, it was. One of my favorite posts was from a year ago, and it said, "I started tribal singing on mushrooms," and then that kind of ties into what we're talking about. In a lot of ways, and I've had that experience before on mushrooms too. And I sometimes wonder if that's just because I've tripped and listened to Terrence McKenna talk about, did anybody speak in tongues before Terrence McKenna tripping? Because I listen to that a lot, tripping. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but he did an album where he's like, I remember the very first time I smoked DMT. It was like, and there was these little creatures, and they started to talk like this. Eo make me huagu wapsi kiti, and he goes on and on, with this alien speech. And I was like, wow, that is the DMT elves. Wow, oh my gosh,
I've heard that before.
And then then afterwards I was like, sometimes that would happen where I'd be like, oh my gosh, yeah. But one time I'm a prankster at heart. So I was in Portugal and tripping at a party with some Portuguese people. And then a long time ago, when I was a teenager, I was an exchange student in Portugal and I learned Portuguese, which I know how to speak, but I didn't tell any of these people in Portugal that. So we're tripping. And then I pretend to learn Portuguese because of this acid we're on being so good. And they were like, what the fuck? And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, oh. It's because of this liquid acid, and then, man, I can speak Portuguese. Like, this is fucking crazy. They're like, oh my God, so like, yeah. And I feel now I'm like, oh, maybe I took that too far, But,
no, dude, that is perfect.
But it kind of like, tribal singing on mushrooms, though.
And
yeah.
never trust a prankster.
Yeah.
That's great.
Actually, yeah, nowadays when I'm at a party, when the elders show up, that's when I know shit's going to get crazy. Like if there's some 50, 60, 70-year-olds there, because
you're like, oh shit.
Because I'm kind of older, but like I'm not like, they took way higher doses back then, for sure. So like yeah. And I was at a Ken Kesey event here a while ago where he had dosed the swimming pool. Like the entire swimming pool was like dosed. Like I didn't even know how you could do that, So like you walk in and my eyes were just like vibrating. I was like, Jesus, this is a crazy scene, Who does that?
That's fucking intense. Yeah.
It reminds me of Jerry Garcia with the birthday cake. Somebody put like 800 hits of LSD in the frosting for this birthday cake before a show one time, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll try a little bit of this birthday cake. Well, you're about to have a good time.
Yeah. So that's not unusual for the pranksters in California for a party. So like, I've gotten to the point now, like I don't let go of my water bottle at all. Like, because one time I got dosed pretty high while I was playing and I didn't know. And then that was actually pretty terrifying because it took me about an hour to realize I was on acid, So I was like, oh shit, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I guess like, and then like I kind of had a whiteout, which I've never had before. Everything turned white. It was daytime, but my eyes were open. And then I was like, oh shit, I'm on acid. Like, oh, there must have been acid in my water bottle because I didn't take any acid today. And then it was instant relief, but for sure, I know, yeah, like funny. So, some pranksters came to one of our parties from England, and they were doing really crazy stuff. So what they would do is like this guy would go into the porta potty and then he'd have his friend put a zip tie on the outside of the porta potty. And then this guy would be like, fuck, I can't get out. Oh, somebody zip tied me in there. And then, oh my God, they're zip tying people into the porta potties. And people are like, oh my God, you can't go in the porta potties. Oh my gosh. And it was like this thing. And it was just these jokes that people were playing. And I was like, what? What?
Yeah, damn. So everybody's just like, nobody's like using the porta potties anymore. And like security's like, why the hell isn't anybody using the porta potties?
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's like nobody's zip tying anybody. These guys are assholes. Don't listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the drums. That's cool. That's cool. You play music.
So how did you get started? Like, where did music begin for you?
I had a guitar and I learned how to play guitar. But when I was super little on MTV, there was this Herbie Hancock live performance of this song called Rocket that was like really famous when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade. And then it had this DJ who like had these headphones with an antenna and he was scratching and the song was Rocket. And then I remember being like, damn, that's the coolest shit I've ever seen. And then I started to air DJ well before I learned. I started DJing when I was like 17.
Yeah.
And ambient music, experimental ambient music. So I would like take like advertisements and then I'd have music behind it. And then maybe I'd play some of the advertisement backwards and then like, just fuck around, like I had a radio show for 4 years in college where they let me do whatever I want. And in Austin, not too far from where you guys are. So like,
nice.
So that was, and I'd moved to San Francisco to continue making ambient music because at the time it was the ambient music capital of the world. There was like, you know, the 15 people that are into ambient music all live there. So like, you know, I was like, oh sweet, I'm gonna go there and we're gonna like chill people the fuck out, you know. And then I ran into people making
There's
dance music.
dozens of
Yeah,
us.
I know, right? It's like, oh, I mean, I listen to birds and shit all the time. I mean, like, there's all these YouTube channels that are like, here's 12 hours of these birds from Africa, and I'm like, I'm all in on that, you know.
Hell yeah, I know what I'm doing for the next 12 hours.
Yeah, totally, you know, for sure. So there are wind chime YouTube channels. I mean, just so you know, in case you ever need it, there's some really good like 5 hours of this really nice wind chime channel. You know, like I mean, yeah, I seriously dork out on music and sound in general. You know, for
That's
sure.
great.
How about you? How did you get started on music?
I remember I'd moved to this new town. It was like 8th grade. I hadn't really played anything before. Like I'd played like trombone and band. But I liked music, but I made this new friend and I go over to his house to spend the night. And that evening, his dad and him, like we go downstairs and they've got like, basically his dad plays guitar and he plays drums. And I sat and watched them jam all night long. They're just like making things up. And it was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen because his dad was like really good at guitar. I'd never seen anybody that good in person before. And then my friend Aaron, he was fantastic on the drums. And so I just started there with just me watching and being completely blown away to them inviting me to try the drums and then just becoming obnoxiously obsessed with playing their drums all the time.
Sweet.
So that was one of your posts you were talking about. What was another one you had?
Well, I was about a month ago. There was a post that says reality is already psychedelic, and I resonate with that. You know, I think in a lot of ways. I mean, I can especially say it's hard to imagine. Like now, I'm like, oh, I'm sober. What does that mean? Like I'm not high today, but I've had these experiences already. So like, I don't know if you can't. I mean, you've heard the expression, you can't unring a bell. You know, like so. Now that I've already tripped, I mean, and then when I just open up to like what is reality, I mean, it's almost like whoa, it's very trippy. I mean, you know, and I mean, you could be like, oh, the reality of the street I live on, all the way out to the reality of the known universe, and between all those things, I mean, it's just I wouldn't say like I'm really not religious, but I was an atheist before I tripped. For sure. And then I was tripping and I was just like, I remember having this realization and laughing and just being like, damn, I don't know anything. How could I be so confident? And I mean, atheism's like, no, there's nothing. I mean, that's like a smart person saying that. And I was just like, fuck, I don't know. I mean, and I'm from Texas and I went to public education. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, fuck, I don't know anything, you know? So like,
Yeah, I tend to think of myself as agnostic more than anything. I'd say kind of don't really know, but
yeah.
you know.
I mean, I can see the fault in organized religion, and then as being like a system of, you know, organized religion and spirituality aren't the same thing. Kind of like, you know, in a trance dance experience at a big party, you can have a few people who are like, I want to have this experience, and you have a few other people who are like, you know, I mean, everybody's at a different place on their cosmic journey, I guess, you know. So
Yeah.
I really liked that one. Interestingly, but like probably just for me, there was one that said psychedelics pushed me to become vegan. And then I haven't eaten meat in quite some time. And I can remember the first time I had, you know, I was after a music festival, we went to go eat. And somebody ordered fish, and in my trippy mind, I was like, maybe I can bring the fish back to life with. I'm high enough to do that, and it didn't happen. But then I was like, why did I even think that? You know, and then I'm not a big preachy no meat eater, but like that was something that would come up a lot for me in my trips. Is like, is that what you want to do? And then, you know, I just found that to be interesting, and then. You know, 4 months ago, somebody posted, finally got the cosmic joke on psilocybin, you know, but then they said, well, when it came down, I couldn't remember it, but it was really funny. And then, what you were talking about nitrous, that kind of reminds me a little bit too, because I feel like I don't have a lot of nitrous experience, but the ones I have, it's like, oh wow, I've got it all figured out, and then it's just like, oh, and then the room just dissolved, and then oh whoa, and that's all sound related, because sounds sound so. It's like you can almost you get to see sounds differently when, especially, don't try it at home, but when you combined LSD with nitrous,
Right. There was nitrous is always kind of a landing gear for me. At the end,
Oh
because it would bring me back to my peak for a few seconds as long as I kept it. And yeah, it uses a landing gear. And by the time I was, we were all done, ready, and just ready to pass out. So
yeah,
yeah, that was a
I
good
find
time.
cannabis like that too often sometimes.
Oh
Or
yeah,
I don't
I
know
when
if
I'm
you've
coming
ever,
down from a trip.
yeah, and it'll kind of like we used to call it the shampoo effect. It's like you smoke a little bit, and everything starts tingling again, and you're like, oh, sweet, you know, yeah. So yeah, those have been my. Although I mean, I'm on the. I don't post a lot on there, but I read it voraciously and really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been posting a little more than I have lately, but a lot of it to just kind of let people know what we're doing here, and you know, uh, I don't know. Like I posted up the other day. I posted those the 7 psychonaut principles,
That was
and
great.
thanks. Yeah, I started kicking those around. Yeah, a few weeks before, and was just and the first one for me was automatically no self harm, test your substances, research what you're going to do, know what you're going to, and that's so it's, and then I guess number 2 was hurt nobody else. And the rest of them kind of just fell into place. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah, I think that kind of goes with that as much as, I try to read and try to kind of take in what everybody says. So, but when I'm trying to, when I try to kind of think of what I should, when I should post something on there, usually try to make it real, kind of directed at the community. So,
which is such a big community. I mean, you know what I mean, and it's an internet community, so that's a lot different than an in-person community. I feel like
right.
too.
Well, and that was part
Yeah,
of it too, and also just us realizing that it is a community. That even though we're all everywhere in the world. I saw like one of our downloads for the podcast the other night came from, I think it was Chelsea Square or something in London, which is like where the royal palace or where parliament is. I was like,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
wow, we're
It's
getting
because we're
like
that awesome.
obviously.
yeah.
So it kind of blew me away. I was like, man, people from all over the world getting it, but it's great, and that's part of it, is that we're all part of that community.
I think I was on like maybe a cannabis subreddit just browsing, and then saw it about a year ago, and then I think I saw the post like, "Hey, I'm doing this podcast," and at the time I was like, interestingly enough, I haven't really released any music until very recently. Uh, I had given all my music to my friend Goa Gil to play, and I never tried to release it or do anything. And then, when he passed, he was like, "Hey, you should really get your music out there." I'm just saying, like, people would dig it. And then, so that was part of like, I was in this framework of like, maybe it'd be cool to get my music out there. So that's how I had sent the music over, to be like, "Hey, I think I write stuff that's kind of psychedelic uh, and laid back." Like the stuff I sent was kind of more intentionally like a little bit more laid back, but like pretty. There could be an argument that any music is psychedelic, almost. Like, I mean, I've heard, like, I grew up in Texas. I think I hate country, but then occasionally I'll hear something and I'll be like, damn. I mean, that person's obviously connected to the source of what they're doing, and then I think any musician can do that playing any type of music. I mean, really, for sure. Like
Right.
bluegrass is incredibly psychedelic. I mean, like,
It reminds me of like almost or not Hindu,
yeah,
Islamic mosques, and like the
yeah,
artwork in there is incredibly psychedelic, and you'd never expect it from some of these places, but there it
yeah.
is.
Gosh, yeah. And some of those, like the whirling dervishes, are like these, people in the moss that'll just like spin in a circle for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And then now that I've danced that long, I know what that does to your brain. I mean, it really activates you.
I was
Like,
actually when I was looking into the music and the trance music and everything. That's a lot of what it reminded me of was the Sufi or the whirling dervishes, like you were talking about.
yeah,
Just that trance like dance where they get going and just keep going. So
yeah, it takes you to a lot of the same. Like, say if you like didn't have access to any psychedelics at all, but you had access to music, you could get pretty close to where people get with the tools. Because well, dancing's a tool as well, and I mean, uh, let's be honest, exhaustion is a hell of a drug. I don't know if you've ever pushed yourself really far, stayed up way too long. I mean, that really breaks down the barriers just as much as like almost anything else I've done, you know.
and I think that kind of will come into it is when you go to festivals and do that too. You're already out there at the festival outdoors and camping a lot of times for days on end. So you kind of have a little bit of that exhaustion and lack of sleep and staying up with the
Yeah,
combination of substances and everything. And you just go in and go and nonstop. And so, yeah, kind of a nice combination. Another couple, I guess the other two of my top of this year were both had to do with laws and government. One was the DEA called for an increased production for DMT, and the other one was that Utah lawmakers unanimously sent legislation for therapy for veterans and veterans and other people. And I think to me, those were probably some of the better, bigger stories of the year that um, especially like Utah, like one of those places, and it goes to show that with the right messaging and um, the right kind of drive and the right kind of people, that we can bring this to all those different people, and that I think
totally.
is yeah, I think that's really the beauty of all this, and like the real goal is to just bring this and destigmatize it, because yeah, you can see how many people just get helped by this.
Sure.
Colorado and Oregon are great examples. So but
I
yeah,
have a really
those
good friend of mine who was like really late to the game on psychedelics, and in his 40s, he was incredibly depressed, near suicidal for many years after the loss of several family members, and he just actually started microdosing mushrooms, and then uh, a year later, we start talking a bunch about it, and now, I mean, that's his calling. I mean, he lives in Texas and is facilitating these experiences for other people, a lot of vets, because he was a vet, and in a lot of ways, I think the microdosing is great because uh, it, you can you don't have to like when I was tripping a lot, I really didn't have a lot of time for work or other things, or integration. It took me a while to get to integration because I'd be high a lot, and then I think with I've had more experiences with microdosing recently, and it's a lot. Uh, you get a lot of the benefit without uh, some of the bigger, profound things that come up with larger trips. And I'm not saying like those are bad. It's just you know people's lives have different things going on, and then I mean sometimes I think like for a vet who's maybe has PTSD, if they don't have the right setting set in place for big therapeutic trips, microdosing is totally a great alternative and a great path. I mean,
and it's probably easier to remember too when you're microdosing. And what's we were talking about that earlier, but what's the old meme?
oh, that,
Lucy shows you the secrets of the universe, lets you forget them by the next morning.
yeah,
So kind of the same, almost the same path on that. But yeah, it's been a crazy year. I mean, obviously, my top post for the year would have been the of all would have been the Rick Strassman. Just to have him come in and do an AMA for the subreddit was amazing.
That was cool. I love that show.
Oh, it was really good. He's so well spoken and so interesting to talk to him about. Just pick his brain about these different subjects because like when else am I going to talk to someone about the Aristotelian theory of mindset and Jungian archetypes within DMT trips to somebody of his color. So it's just kind of it just kind of blows me away a little bit. It's a little surreal, but it's been fucking amazing. Like
that actually made me think, I go to a lot of music festivals where a big part of the music festival is the tent where people give talks and stuff. And, it might be, I just think maybe we should keep in touch on a little bit. We've met. I love what you're doing because I think, there might be a few festivals, if not this year, just sometime in the future, where it would be totally appropriate for you to record some episodes there because there's so many people there that, all the people we talk about tend to go to these festivals and talk, so you could access all of them. There's musicians there, there's people there that are tripping. It's a chance to look at psychedelic culture,
that sounds great. That's something we've been talking about and just trying to get going. And we got real lucky with our initial lineup of getting these guests together to get, this first 6 months or so. But just trying to keep this going. To keep it going, it's going to be that, just hard work and fun of going to festivals and interviewing people. And that's the thing about that too. We may go to the festival or go to these, the psychedelic conference, but a lot of that is also going to be work. We're going to have to go and record and talk to people and,
Sure.
get some interviews. So, I mean, it'll be awesome. I think it'd be amazing to go out and, kind of represent the psychonaut community. And I think part of it is, like we said, bringing these people together, that advocacy of, hey, we are a community out here. And there's, 500,000 people back that are, yes, we may gather online, but we're all, interested in this specific thing. So,
yeah, totally. That's cool.
Yeah. But that's like I said, something we'd both be interested in is some like festivals. They still do some festivals around here. I want to say, the big one around here, I think, is that they don't really do EDM, but they were doing Backwoods was the big EDM festival. But there's a couple smaller hippie festivals they do out here sometimes. I think Ott, was it? He did a couple of them once. Like I said, not a lot of big EDM names come out this way. So
sure,
a lot of hippie festivals,
which are great. Yeah, no, I mean,
no, yeah, I'm like when you're talking about the Dead. I'm a huge Dead head. I got into the Dead back in 95, I guess the spring of 95. So
right before Jerry died.
Yeah, that was like that summer I was so excited because I wanted to go and wanted to do tour and everything, but I was 17 and so I couldn't really do it. And I was like, man, I can't go on tour yet, but they're going to go do Europe next year. And then when they come back, I'll be like 19. I can go on tour with them again, when they get back from Europe. And then in August after that last tour, Jerry died. I actually started doing rainbow festivals.
Sure.
Dude, rainbow gatherings. And oh God, I went to 7 or 8 nationals doing that. And that's where I picked up playing djembe, doing drums. And
yeah, totally.
That's one of the only places you can go and play djembe till 5 a.m. and nobody cares.
Yeah.
So, yeah. DylAlien, it was great having you here with us tonight. Super great. Like I said, thank you so much for having your music on, letting us use your music for the podcast. And, thank you for doing all your music and sharing it with us.
Thanks for having me on. I look forward to talking again. This has been a very good time.
Oh yeah, we're excited about having you back. It'll be I think we'll have a good time. And a pleasure talking to you. It's really great, man.
For sure. And I look forward to listening to all your podcasts, and good luck with all your endeavors, for sure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, welcome back, everybody. That was DylAlien, our the guy that did the music, and that was a fun conversation.
Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah. Had a little computer trouble there for a minute, but back now.
Yeah, that happens. He. That was one part I think you did miss. He was talking about he thought there was some festivals out there, maybe California or somewhere else, where he might get us to come and even do speaking or doing recordings and stuff with him.
Oh, that sounds like a good time.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Kind
of told him, even then we'd still be a lot of fun, but still be a lot of work. So, yeah. All right. So you guys support us on patreon.com, Divergent States. Also hit us up on Instagram, hit us on TikTok, Facebook, anywhere you're at, Reddit. You got an interesting story, want to come on? I think it'd be fun to talk to us on the podcast. Hit us up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. You guys be fun out there. Be safe.
Yeah.
And take it easy.